Okay, welcome back. After my last foray into wood drying, that involved the greenhouse and worked to an extent, but not as well as I'd hoped. I've changed things up a bit. So I've got in this corner a couple of IBCs. So that one over there has got some dry softwood in it. Some bits and pieces stacked on top for now. This was where I had a second one. This one I'm turning into a smallish drying kiln. Now, the previous incarnation of the kiln couldn't get to sufficient temperature. It just couldn't get up hot enough because it's heating an enormous space. Not very well insulated space at that. It was glass panes with great big holes between each panes, wind whistling through, and it was 8 by 12. This is just a standard IBC. And all I've done is very simply take some, as you can probably tell, knackered old 8x4 external ply, split it in half. So I've got all four outside sides, just screwed together just loosely with some blocks, mostly on the inside, but basically just screw blocks. On top I have loosely laid some material, apart from one corner at the back there. And I have plumbed in the Chinese heater. So the aim and concept is to blow hot air in here. So loose stack this, just loose stack it with whatever. I have, excuse me, in rather a large supply to split down. You won't see it because it's a lot. That's ash taken as part of hedge cutting. And basically dry it down. Now I do have some of the ash that was in the greenhouse that is not dry enough yet, so I'll probably run a test batch with that, and then we'll blow the hot air in at the bottom. It can vent and exhaust at the top and opposite corner there, but because it's loosely stacked, it will be forced to wind its way through the material. I have got the other end on that, so to speak, the cowl end. In fact, let's lift this up and show you. Cowl end in this side. But yeah, the aim is to get this up to a decent temperature and see how long it takes to bring this down, because in that greenhouse that ash wasn't, the hawthorn, the oak, and the ash wasn't particularly wet. It had been semi-seasoned, so the thought of taking that green ash behind me and drying that down is going to be significant. Admittedly, it's a much smaller kiln than the commercial ones that are made out of shipping containers, but if I can make that work, it's cost me the Chinese diesel heater and basically some time. All of this stuff I had knocking around, I had the IBC here, I had the timber sat behind the shed for donkey's years, and this is just stuff that I've had hanging around that I've just laid on top. Although I probably will reconfigure it, so I'll have the lighter one at the front and the heavier one towards the back, simply because it makes getting into it easier. And none of these are attached because I need to be able to lift them off so that I can fill and then fill and empty the IBC when it's done. And that's it, basically. I will bring you back. I'm going to run it up cold, run it up empty to heat it up and dry out some of these boards because they've been sat outside for some time. And I'll bring you back once that's dry and I start stacking it. Okay, welcome back. As you can hear, it's going. It's actually been going for about an hour and a half. I've had to change batteries because the one below is so completely dead it can't handle taking a charge. When this kicks off, it takes between 10 and 15 amps, which is simply too much. For my little battery chargers, they do 6 to 8 amps to supply, so there needs to be a buffer to give it that amperage draw. And the bottom one is so completely knackered it couldn't hold anything. That holds very little, but it holds just enough to get it started. Been running for an hour and a half. According to my little probe down there, it's 34.5 degrees. And that's completely empty, so there's no material buffer in there. So yeah, it's all looking like it's working well. You can see visually it's drying out. I'm not really going to take it any further until tomorrow now, so I'm going to turn it off for the evening. Tomorrow I'll load it with the ash and the oak. Hawthorn's already dried. I might bring the hawthorn in and stack it up on the other IBC. But yeah, that's should be actually firing up and seeing how it works tomorrow. It all seems to be sort of working much more effectively. Right, I'll bring you back then. Okay. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of a flood with enormous rain, but it'll be fine. So this is now full. It's a combination of ash and oak and a little bit of the hardwood. But basically, it's full to the brim. I'm going to get this underway, firing in, and I'm going to run it for probably, I'll bring you back in an hour, but otherwise I think it's probably going to be 2 or 3 days. And we'll come and see what it's like in terms of its drying capability. I'll see you then. Okay, welcome back. Here we are about an hour and 10 minutes later. It's working nicely, as you can see from the state of the floor. This is the first time this year we've had anything like this level of flooding. We've had little bits here and there, but the volume today overwhelmed the height of the concrete and it's just come straight in. Put the whole workshop under about 1 inch of water. But we're up to about 22.4 degrees, which is not bad at all, considering this is full of logs and I've moved the probe to pretty much as far away as we can get from the air intake. So come back in a couple of hours once it's properly got its temperature. I think it's going to take probably 5 or 6 hours minimum to get its temperature. We'll see what it's like, see what it can get up to, see whether it's effective really. I'll run it for probably 3 days and then we'll see what the content is like. See you then. Okay, here we are, back after another hour, 26.4. Still heating up. I fully expect it to take up to 6 hours to heat this volume of wood sufficiently that the atmospheric temperature can really start to increase. We've got the vent floor now, of course, all the gaps on the top that steam can escape from, so I'm hoping that a few more hours and we should start to see some temperature increases up to where it's going to sit, and then we'll go from there. I'll see you in a few hours. Okay, welcome back. It's the next day for me, seconds for you. It's 34.7 right at the moment, which is a respectable temperature. Took a long time for it to heat. I'm just going to pop this off. It's going to go into clear down mode. You can't see that. That allows it to gradually wind back. Sound less like an aircraft taking off, but yeah, let's have a look and see what it's like. I mean, the boards themselves, which were sopping wet when I first started because they've been outside, are bone dry and warm to the touch. Cool. So you can feel the heat radiating out of here. That's quite warm, actually. This all feels very dry indeed. Should we put a little meter on? What it would see. Don't know if you can read that. that basically determines what type there. So same as the outside of that. Let's have a look. Look, it's just playing up. Oh, I've got it on wood D. Let's try again. Right. Hold caller please while I get this meter working. Okay, that's a piece of oak, that's saying it's 0. That's a piece of hawthorn, it's saying it's 0. That's a piece of ash, it's saying it's also 0. Outside wood block, 32.9 on the damp spot. So it is working, it just happens to be really very dry, surprisingly so, for 24 hours. I'm going to pause you a sec while I go and grab an axe. I'm going to split a couple of bits and see what it's like in the centre. Okay, let's bring you back again, shall we? Right, oak, ash, hawthorn. I could feel that the oak was much wetter inside. That's 32.7 it thinks. On the cut side. That's not the cut side, that's the cut side. 23.8 on the ash. Inside 22.1 and the hawthorn 20.7. Okay, so what I'll do now is so there's two types of water. There's free water, which is the kind that runs around the cells, and then there's bound water, which is tied up inside the cells. Okay, it's the bound water that we're struggling to extract here because it can't get it sufficient, give it enough energy to leave. So what we're effectively going to do is we're going to leave it for the rest of today. I'll fire it up just before bed and run it on an overnight run, and tomorrow morning until sort of lunchtime, and then I'll turn it off again. What this does is allows cellular pressure to re-equalise the water within that wood. So as the outside, as you can see, was bone dry, what will happen is that the water from the centre will start to migrate its way to the outside. If you're not careful, you can with too high a temperature, you can do something called case hardening, whereby that process stops and you effectively end up with bound water trapped in the centre. But because we're doing it at fairly low temperature, I mean, this is the same kind of low temperature stuff you would use if you were producing timber for fine grade carpentry. You know, if you were milling lumber for hardwood lumber for making desks or fine pieces of carpentry, you want a longer, slower approach to it. But it's what I've got, so it's what I'll do. So yeah, basically this will now be allowed to fully dry, fully cool down, come down to temperature by itself, you know, and that water will be allowed to migrate from the centre of those blocks of wood out. And then we'll heat it up again, and we'll drive that moisture off from the outside of the blocks, and we'll let it cool down again and see what it's like in the centre. And basically rinse and repeat until such time as it's dry enough in the centre. You know, if it's 0% on the outside and 25% on the inside, you know that with a week or so's rest, that average moisture level within that piece of wood is going to be, you know, 17-18%, even allowing for atmospheric pickup of moisture. Personally, I would prefer to get the centre down to below 20, but you know, that may not be possible because it's the amount of energy input for each fractional percentage degree is very different. So before I put it on tonight, I will see whether that's equalised, so by testing the timbers and splitting some more and seeing what that number actually looks like once it's cooled down, and I'll bring you back for that as well. Right, see you shortly. Okay, so we're back, and this was running pretty much 20 hours, something like that. So yeah, it's dry as a bone now. You can hear it. Feels light. Yeah, that's a piece of ash. This is a piece of oak. Okay. Very light. That'll be a hawthorn piece. Again, that was hawthorn basically dried. You can hear it. It's not a. It's difficult to describe, but the sound is very different. We start to look at the ends. You can see, we've got some real checking, major checking on that piece. Even on that, which is oak, you can see we've got some checking as it started to dry and split. And oak takes an age to dry. Very high moisture content, particularly with the bark on. It takes forever to dry down. But yeah, so we can see that. Let's see. I don't know if you can see that. See some checking starting in the centre there. Can't see anything on that end, but it's certainly well below 20%. I mean, you really start to see checking like that there. When it gets down below that, that 20% threshold, it starts to really dry down well. But yeah, so this is now all ready to go. I will be attempting to find places to store this out of the weather. I'll probably top up my burning one, which is currently full of softwood, so I might have to strip the softwood out, split it up, and maybe bag it to go on top, because I do tend to mix soft and hardwood. If I've got supplies of both, I'll mix it, because softwood gives a good instant heat. Hardwood burns longer and slower. So together they produce a very nice arrangement. So yeah, the long and the short is that this kiln just produced a cubic metre of burnable ready hardwood in about 3 days. So depends on whether you ran it continuously. If I was going to do it again, I'd run it probably 20-hour stints with a day in between, and do 3 of those, so it would probably take 5 days in total, to get your best bang for your buck, because you really want that high temperature for a longer time to drive that moisture out. Then you let it rest by opening the tops up and all that moisture disappear out into the atmosphere, and get fully cold again, and allow that water transition to go from the very centre, so your bound water to go from the very middle, migrate out through osmosis. So effectively you'll go from areas of high water pressure to areas of low water pressure. That's just a natural thing. So it'll drive out that intracellular water into the surrounding tissues, which then get heated again, and it's dried out from there much more quickly, and likewise so on and so forth. But yeah, I'd probably do it. So next batch, and I have probably enough material stacked up behind me to do 3 of these, something like that. So total cost, each of these drums, each of these canisters takes about 5 litres, and I do top it up once. So to dry down that cubic metre has cost me, I just give this a slosh, probably 5 or 6 litres left, so probably 12-13 quid to dry down that cubic metre. Don't know what it'd be like on completely green ash. The stuff I've got is hedge clippings, some of which was standing dead for a while, some of it from dieback. some of it was not, but you know, we'll see how long that one takes. Maybe it'll take a bit longer, but yeah, it's somewhere between 3 and 5 days. You know, somewhere between 12 and 20 quid to dry down a cubic metre, versus the purchase cost, which around here for me is about 120 to 150, depending on the quality and what kind of species you're getting. If you want straight ash, it's 150. If you're happy with mixed hardwoods, it's about 120. Softwoods are a little bit cheaper, about 100, but they don't last anything like as long. If you can get it, you know, I'm right out in the sticks, so if I want this, I've either got to hook up the trailer, drive out to somewhere and pick it up, or I've got to pay usually an extra £20 or £30 delivery charge. So for me, it works extremely well. So yeah, just thought I'd say yes, this version has worked. It's not as good as a commercial kiln. It doesn't get up to the temperatures that a commercial kiln would. I mean, you'll get this up to 35, 40 degrees. It would be better, you know, if you're going to build one of these yourself, to have a purpose-built lid and some insulation boards on the inside. That would really keep that heat in, and the top as well. Maybe a fan or two. You know, as time goes on, if I'm continuing to do this build, I'll probably get some old computer fans and slap some of those around the side to aid with air movement. But that would involve ducting and things, which I can't be bothered to do at the minute. So yeah, as time goes on, I'll probably make additional modifications to it. But for something that took me a whole half an hour to slap together, I've got drywood over winter without paying the insane prices. So take from that what you will, do from that what you will, but I think it's worked quite well. See you guys on the next one.